Hey, Hunter, can you hear me? Just doing a little quick test.
Yes,
Oh, thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Anna, what's the weather like in Germany?
It's a little cold, but it's nice for fall. It's for sure nicer than Boston weather right now, I think. But it's pretty, really nice colors here.
It is mid 70s here in Boston. It's
Wow.
short weather. It feels so good.
Wow. Yeah, I heard it was warm. Got lucky.
Yeah, it'll change towards the end of the week. But
Yeah.
curious.
Went from snow to a warm November.
I'll wait another minute. Okay, so let's do some housekeeping. I sent out a couple of emails. I don't need to bombard you, but I figure, keep you informed, and I've also posted this in announcements. The first thing is, it really affects classes here in KCB. So on the Tuesday, the 24th, It's a class that's Thanksgiving week. It's a lab session. So I'll do it from my office, and any team who needs a little extra help, either on the first team project or the second team project, just join the class link, or if there's any questions on the material to date, join. Optional, not required. This way here, I'm still conducting class, but for those of you that are going home for Thanksgiving, you can get a jump start on it, okay? Wednesday, I normally have office hours at 9 p.m., especially for my international time zone students, but there's no office hours, right? And Thursday is Thanksgiving. If you celebrate it, great. If you don't, it's still time to relax and have some fun with your family or friends. So there's no classes. Tuesday, December 1st, when we come back, that'll be the last class here in KCB. All right, so it's a lecture, it's part 2 of security. After that, we're going to be completely remote. Why? Starting that Wednesday night, we're doing team presentations. And Eleanor, thank you for sending me the email. When I reread what I wrote to you, I had a date issue in it, so this is correct. So Wednesday night, teams 2 and 9 will present. No other students need attend unless you're interested, and that'll start at 9 p.m. On December 3rd, it'll be teams 1, 3, 4, and 5. And then the following Tuesday, the 8th, it'll be teams 6, 7, 8, and 10. All teams have to turn their presentations in on December 1st. This way here, we don't give, an advantage to a team that's doing a presentation, after they've seen others, right? So everybody needs to turn it in on the 1st, okay? December 10th will be our final exam review. And I have really great news. It will not be comprehensive. It will be chapters 5, which is ERD and database design, 6, 7, 8, and 9, right? And in those chapters, there are some crossovers to some earlier information, but only if it's in that chapter will you be tested on it. It'll be multiple choice, and we'll talk more about that in the future. Okay, so any questions first on these dates? And the reason why I want to do the final exam review completely remote is because I really want, for once, to see your face. I want to take the mask off. This is our last time to connect, and I want to make sure, I set you up as best as I can to do well on the final. Okay, next. Can you guys still see this? Are you guys still tracking with me? Okay, so, as I promised, I'm maintaining your quiz scores, right? Because if I gave you a quiz on ERD to database design, I have a funny feeling based on the homework, many of you would do well, but many of you would not get 100. And so right now, I think the average is like a 97. So I'm maintaining your quiz scores. I find that quizzes are really good reinforcement, but I think at this point it's going to bring down your grade, and there's no need to do that. You guys have worked really hard. So, a couple of students said that they do like the discipline of a quiz. So what I did is I came up with something that's kind of in between. I think you need to develop better study guides, because if it's open book, open notes, you're spending too much time in the book trying to answer the question where you really need to develop a strategy for each of the chapters. So, as an optional exercise, I have indicated, oops, sorry, one sec. So, chapters 6, 7, 8, and 9, I give you the textbook page where there are questions that you need to answer. optional, you do it, you turn it in. The maximum you get is 100, and you get 0.5 points added to your grade, right? So again, it's a bonus. You don't have to do it, but if you do it, all 4 of them, you get up to 2 points. Okay, I don't think you're gonna get a better deal than that. And that's on your composite grade, so it's not, going to be recalculated based on percentages. So you can get up to 2 more points on your total class grade. And they're fairly lengthy questions, but it'll give you a good way to regurgitate the material and come up with an outline for each of the chapters. Again, completely up to you. And I will look it in. It is going to go through turn it in. All I want to do is make sure you don't copy somebody else's. I understand that there's going to be a high rate of what will be viewed as potentially plagiarism because you're all going to be using some of the same quotes. I'm not worried about that. It's turn in your own work. But again, it's optional. If you do it, you can turn them in anytime. But they're due on December 10th at 5 p.m., the absolute latest. That is our last class. And I've been pretty fair with everybody. Not everybody's needed it, but I've given you some extensions. There's no extension on this because it's a bonus, right? And I'm hoping it will drive questions for the final review because you've now gone through it and maybe there's a term or a concept you say, can we go over this? And now we can work together as a team. Okay, so optional, each one is listed. December 10th, they're due. You can turn it in anytime if you want to. You do not have to do it, but 2 points, up to 2 points, is pretty big, right? So, questions on that?
So do we have unlimited attempts for this assignment?
Pardon me?
So do we only have one chance for the questions or we have unlimited attempts?
No, you only have one chance.
Okay.
It's a bonus. And if you look at the questions in the textbook, right, many of them come right from the slides, but it's for you to rewrite them in your own words, or at least rewrite it so it reinforces the concepts. I want really good grades on the final. And I'm thinking my better students in the past had these really elaborate study guides, and so why not allow everybody to create a study guide, right? And especially if you're in my international time zone challenge, you're using the ebook, and I know that that's difficult on the exam. You just can't really go back and forth that quickly. So now you'll have what you need for doing, I think, better on the exam, at least I hope. Any other questions? Okay, so just to summarize this, look at the dates. Most of them really affect the few students that come in to KCB. After the first, we're going to be remote. Do these if you want. It will add points to your grade. And again, I'm trying to stage it so you all do as well as you can. Okay? So, and I did get all the team proposals on Friday. Some of you had already met and then you just followed it up with the outlines. I'm really excited by the presentations. I mean, if you can pull off what you outlined, they sound incredible. So. All right, so this is part 2 of business process mapping, right? And most of this class, I'm going to put you in teams of 2 only to do another case. I want to reinforce how to do business process mapping. So, let's go over some of the golden rules. I'll go to the end first. just some common language. The first map that you normally do when you're studying a business problem is the as-is. That's what you're going to do for the hospital case. Don't use last semester's chart as your start. Your assignment is different than theirs. Okay? I just want to make that clear. So yours is different. All you're going to do is an as-is. Do not interpret what you think should be improved. That's a to be, right? You're going to identify step by step the inefficient process and manual files that are being used, right? And that's going to feed your PowerPoint for your recommendations, your to be. You don't have to do the to be chart, you're going to put that in text form. Then normally, when you do this, so you map it, you have the to be, and then you implement, right? And just like, operations management or Six Sigma, it's continuous improvement. You're measuring, did you achieve the efficiencies that you thought you did? The reason why you do this is because you want standardized ways of doing business, right? If I have a function which is hiring employees or student employees, I don't want one manager to do it one way and another manager to do it another way. And think about it. If you worked here, right, you have to do verification, I-9. We have to make sure that it's done correctly by the law. We can't, have a different procedure for different types of people, right? And so that's why you do business process mapping. You want a standardized way of doing business. Where do you not use it? What type of processes do not lend themselves to business process mapping? Adam. Dynamic, right? You do this for structured processes only. Why? Structured has desired outcomes, it's repeatable, and it's really to be used across the whole enterprise. Dynamic has to do with brainstorming, collaboration, teaming. It can go into many different directions. It's not a standardized process. And we use systems, right, to support it. In structured, we use systems as prescriptive, meaning it's helping to solve a problem, right? Okay. Then if you remember, the swim lanes, every actor, right, or process has its own swim lane. The only way you can cross it is if you're now moving to a new process or a decision point is providing some sort of direction to the next actor, right? And I generally use a filled-in straight line to do that. If it's an information flow, meaning, I'm checking for inventory, I'm checking for vacancy, right? I'm checking if there's an available airline seat. The system is probably giving me output onto my screen, so it's an information flow, and I would use dotted lines. I say use dotted lines only for databases. Why don't you use it for paper file systems? Come on, remote. Why don't you use information flows for a swim lane that is identified as a paper file system? Adam.
It's a physical thing, so it's like two people interacting with each other. It's not you interfacing with anything.
Right. Adam says you're interacting with a physical. It's not providing you the answer, right? So you go to a file cabinet and you're pulling a patient record. Yes, you got information, but it's not providing it to you in an automated fashion, right? And guess what? You could actually pull the wrong record. It's totally a manual process. So when you do the swim lanes for the team project, there are no databases. There's no automation. There are no dotted lines. You could use a dotted line as an information flow from a person to a person, but I say I'll mark it wrong if you use the wrong line, so just use like filled in lines for everything, right? It makes it easier when you're on a manual process. Okay. How many lines do I have coming out of a decision point, and what is the symbol for a decision point? Kathleen.
2, and it's a diamond.
Diamond, yes, and always 2. Never 1, never 3, and never more. Always 2. If you have more than 2 lines, it means that you have to break that process down, right? So it's going to be a yes, no, an A, B. Confirm, not confirm. Ordered, satisfied, yes, no. It's only 2 lines. You identify the swim lanes in singular form, like we've done everything else in this class. ERDs, right? It's a role, it's not the person. So it's not customers, it's the role called customer. It's not databases, it's the role called database. So everything is singular, never plural. Where do you stop and start? The lane that you initiated the start is the lane that you always end in. So if it's a customer order process, you will always start in the customer, and it will be an open circle, that means start, and you will always eventually end there, right? You'll never end it in the clerk lane or in the database, because it's all about the customer's transaction. Start, stop, customer lane. Okay, so we talked about process flows, communication flows, decisions. Again, it's really an if, then, or an A, B, or a yes, no. So that's a decision point. It's a triangle. What symbol do I use documented elsewhere? Meaning, it's not part of this procedure, but the outcome of that is used in this procedure. Adam?
It's the little plus sign.
I use a cross, right? So in the process step, it's going to be a cross. I always think about the red cross, right? So I want the outcome if you have sufficient credit, but it's really MasterCard, Visa, American Express, whatever that's given the authorization. That process is handled outside of the order, right? All you know as the customer is you got the go-ahead. You have sufficient available credit to place the order by credit card or Vimeo or whatever else you're using. Okay. All right. So again, just to recap, because it is on the final. Structured processes are standardized. They support day-to-day operations, right? So it's the routine. Other than the examples that I've given, anybody from remote give me a structured process example? Come on. I'm not moving until somebody from remote gives me a structured process example. You're physical. Jasmine.
Like returning something, like after you buy something and you want to return it, there's like you have to have certain things.
Absolutely, right? Whether it's, like you bought it from Amazon and so you decide you don't like it, there's actually a return procedure, right? And they tell you what it is. You have the label, you put it in, you have to drop it off, it gets scanned, and within a couple of days you get the credit to your account, right? And that's a standardized process. Much of that happens to be automated, right? Give me another structured process remote.
Like applying for a bank account.
Right,
Or-
applying for a bank account, right? So you have to meet certain thresholds, right? You got to provide certain documentation, there's an age, etc. Andrew.
I was gonna say automatic billing.
Automatic billing, right? So you're on campus or off campus, you sign up for Comcast, right? And you get a bill for your internet on a monthly basis. The system, right, has a process in place to make sure that on the 10th of every month it gets generated, and you need to pay by the 30th of the month in order to avoid late fees. Give me a dynamic process, somebody from remote. I do have a good looking class and I'm not moving, so I need a dynamic process.
Would customizing a product be dynamic?
So, in its purest sense, I would agree. Like you're gonna customize, your new iPhone or your Mac, and you get to choose memory and all of that stuff, right? Some could argue that it is really a structured process because the outcome is a configured system, but that one's probably gray. Another example. Xavier,
Would inventory replenishment be a dynamic process?
with what, please?
Inventory replenishment? Refilling inventories?
It's probably because I'm old. I heard something about employees, but I really didn't hear you clear enough, and I apologize. Could you do it one more time?
Yeah, I was talking about inventory replenishment. Like whenever like the store runs out of inventory, they have a process where they get like the inventory they need.
I would say that's probably more structured. If you said to me, like, you come in and you go through a leadership training, but the outcome of where you're going to be assigned is really based on your performance. Part of that would be structured, right? Because you're going through a 16 or 18 month, and then part of it would be dynamic because it's really based on the individual. It's really collaboration. It's team. Or how about gambling or the lottery, right? I mean, the outcome is you win or lose, but there's like many different happenings, right? You could win nothing, you can win $1, $5, $10, whatever the case may be. Generally, it's thinking about like a new market strategy, right? You're going to base it on some information, but the outcome is yet to be determined, right? So it can go in many different directions. So dynamic just means that it's teaming, collaboration, and not a routine. Payables, receivables, ordering an airline ticket, those type of things are generally covered in your ERP and are structured. Okay, enough. I had 2 cups of coffee today, so you can tell, right? I'm pretty wired. All right. Again, this sort of recaps what we said. Yes, Jason.
Wait, so is semi-structured between structured and dynamic processes?
Excuse me?
Like, semi-structured, I guess, like process be like in between those two?
Yes.
Oh, and then okay, my follow-up question is like, would a performance evaluation be semi-structured?
Okay, so Jason asked, would a performance evaluation be a semi-structured activity? It's got a blend of both. It's really structured in that once a year, the policy of the company is you must do employee reviews, and here are the rating options that you have. Outstanding, exceeds, meets, below, right? And based on those standards, you need to take an action. If it's below, you need to develop an action plan. What's in that action plan and the outcome would be dynamic, right? So it's the content, but it would be more of a structured process because you have to do it.
Oh, so it would be more
Right.
more towards structure. So
Whereas
semi-structured.
bonus, it could be semi. Whereas a bonus system, right, it's really based on employee performance and how well the company does, right? There is some structure to it in that I may on an annual basis provide a bonus, but the components of it can change from year to year, right? I'm really thinking in its purest sense, structured processes are easy to define. It's those routine things that you hire most employees to do, right? And it's most of the things that you guys come in contact with, whether you're had internships, right? Unless you're doing creative research, right? Research would be dynamic, everything else would be structured. You're doing some analysis for your boss, you're maintaining a system, you're adding data into a system, you're doing CRM, meaning you're looking at customers and contacts and leads, right? Those are all structured processes. You want it to be handled the same. Again, this chapter reiterates the difference between data and information, and many of you on the midterm got it wrong. Information is calculations, averages, summary, right? Interpretations, it's predictions, it's patterns. Data is the individual number or letter. In and of itself, it doesn't mean anything, right? So one grade is data. Your total set of grades is information. It's how you stand in your class, how you stand at BU. Are you on Dean's list? But one grade in and of itself means nothing, right? Okay. So, again, the book kind of goes through a couple of these things. You don't really need to memorize the slide or whatever, but it's concept, right? So, and you're going to apply this really when you think about your team project. You're trying to get at communication, documentation, so that if you're developing the as-is and the to-be, you get a baseline understanding, right? That's what a consultant does, right? Let me document the current situation. This, again, reiterates, right? What are some characteristics of data? It has to be accurate. Well, that's, pretty good. Timely, meaning it has to be appropriate for what you're looking at. If I'm producing a number as my month-end balance, but I'm doing it 6 months late, it's not timely. If you do a query like the employee compensation tables, right? And the query structure's wrong, so you give me the wrong answer, it is not accurate, right? Relevant to context or to subject. Anybody know what the heck that means?
What that mean it has to do with the subject or content. So if you have like a field of data that you're collecting about someone, like I don't have an example, but it has to actually pertain to something with the characteristics of.
Right. So Andrew said it has to pertain to what you're looking at or studying, right? So let's think about this. It has to be in context. So starting tomorrow, in case you don't know, students that are not in compliance, miss their test greater than 48 hours, you're shut off from the dorm, the wireless, questrom tools, you get a 0 in Blackboard and questrom tools, whatever you missed, right? And so that's part of my job as IT. I hate it, but I have to do it because I have to keep the community safe. Okay, so the dean wants a daily report, right? How many students were non-compliant? What was the turnaround? How quickly did they respond and correct the situation? So far, context is relevant, right? But then and maybe I break it down to freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors, undergrad versus grad, right? But then, maybe even gender, right? But then if I start giving her GPA, it has nothing to do with compliance, right? So yeah, it might be an interesting point, but there's not necessarily a correlation there, right? So it's not in context, it's not in subject. So when you provide data, it has to fit what's being requested. That's why when you do Microsoft Access queries, and I say, oh, you brought in the wrong table, right? The results will change. It has nothing to do with what's being requested, right? And so not only is it not accurate, it's not relevant to what I've asked you to do. Just sufficient, right? And so you want to meet the need, and as we talked about in chapter 1, right? So these concepts kind of building on each other. There's all of this data, right? And if you gave me like a dump of the table in Microsoft Access total compensation rather than just operators, right? It's not sufficient. You gave me too much, right? And you had a short table. But imagine if you had 1 million entries and you gave me the full 1 million entries. I have to wade through that, right? So it's not sufficient. And then worth its cost. This is probably the big question mark, right? So I'm spending all this time and talent on business analytics, you know, are the results worth the information cost or the data cost, right? The storage, the cloud, etc. So these are some characteristics you need to keep in mind. All right. So, new share. Start the share. Mute. Just give me 1 second. Okay. You know, it's okay when you talk to yourself, but when you answer yourself in a different voice, you know it's bad. Okay. So, this is the case. This was actually a quiz before. So, something like this I would have given to you as a quiz on business process mapping. Again, we're not doing that. So I want you to take a few moments and read it. It's just part A. You don't have to do part B. Part B was also a quiz. So this is Big Mike's. It's in the resources folder called in-class exercises, if that's easier for you to do on your screen. But you're gonna develop an as-is, a business process map. My preference is that you do it on Lucid Chart, but you can also hand draw it out if you're having connection issues. Is it hot in here? Yeah, I'm gonna put you now into groups of 2. Again, it's in the resources folder. In-class exercise is called Big Mike's. And yeah.
I got put in a room too. I got put in a room.
Alright, which room are you?
I'm with Valerie.
It's too many rooms.
I think room 6. No, not room 6.
The mouse isn't letting me. Move to 8. As co-host, can't you get yourself out? I can't, I have no control on this mouse.
Yeah, but then I don't think she would have a partner.
I'll put her into a room as soon as I can.
Oh, I already moved out. Yeah, she's the one that needs a partner.
Professor?
Yes?
I think my how do I call him? Like Ryan?
Yep.
Like he was my
Partner?
yeah, he was my partner and I think he left the breakout room accidentally. So I was wondering if he was here.
No, he's still in the breakout room. Let me join the room and just see for a minute. He's still there. He just asked me a question on how to text. So how do I get you back in?
The next one is where we go to customer.
That's interesting, 'cause I couldn't see him in the room.
You have to rejoin yourself. We're gonna end up coming back pretty quickly anyway, so if you want, you can just stay here.
No, I actually found the way to get in.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Out of curiosity, where is to determine whether a certificate is needed or not? Is that an external call?
Well, right.
Because it's not in the tables, whether a piece of equipment needs a certificate, like the training.
Oh, it's a clerk to customer.
Okay.
Right.
So it's the clerk would
It's
just know.
but if you were to do a table, it should be in there.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I follow that. So what you're saying on paper, that would be, so there's they check the rental days, they want to rent, they submit, they give the certificate. So they're having that as a, well, hold on. So we have it as a decision here, and it goes back to customer, right? And then would there be another decision point here for?
I should.
I mean, even if there's some missteps, it doesn't matter.
Like, yeah, top. Right, so it's like presentation of the certificate, whatever. Okay, I got it. sketching through that. I can send this if you want to. All right. See ya.
All right, you guys, like I clicked the wrong thing, but at least you're smiling, you know. It is so hot in this auditorium. I am baking. I think my brain is baked and it's not on any edibles either. Okay. Just so that you know, this really was an exam question. Part two is part two of an exam, in addition to multiple choice and everything else, in a 90-minute period. So I've really changed it up for you this semester, but I'm going to show you one approach. There are many different approaches. So the answer key is in the in class. It was hidden before I made it unhidden. Okay. So again, just to reiterate, you start and end in the customer. Request equipment rental, right? I put in information flow because it's a human to human. You could put a solid line. I'm not worried about that. But the clerk is checking availability. It's going against a database. It's going to get a menu, a screen option, right? So in this case, it has to be a dotted line. Is equipment available? It's a decision point, right? They're going to take some action based on that. Here I needed like an anchor. So let's say you ask for the piece of equipment, it's not available. You don't want to end the process, right? You want to be able to say, hey, would you like another piece of equipment? Would you like to go on the wait list? Would you like to do something rather than goodbye, right? So the way I do it is I created this process step in form, and from there there's a decision that the customer has to do. But you could have made it a diamond and skipped that anchor point, okay? Was it William asked me, and as did Adam, about the license required? Again, it could be a poll back and forth to the database to be interpreted that way. Like, so certain pieces of equipment, right? You have to have an age and maybe a license. Other pieces of equipment like rakes and shovels and stuff like that, you can grab at any point. So it's a back and forth, right? In this particular case, they want to, I think the write-up wanted it to be validated. So you could have combined things and said, oh, do we have the quantity and is license required? Immediately you provide that information. I think the best thing to do is always break it down into its smallest steps. That way there you don't miss something, okay? Process payment, you'll see I have a plus in there, and that's because it's either going to be through a credit card, but you could have had like not authorized, and so it's going to be like a customer dispute process, right? So you're always going to use that plus wherever. Before we break, can I really put you on the spot, Andrew?
Yeah.
Can you share your diagram? Did you close it? So one of the students of the students is going to show their file. Maybe.
You just have to look back to the Zoom.
Okay, we never hate in this class. This is pretty darn good. So we have our 4 lanes, right? Oh, in mine, okay. So what I like about this one is you can have 1 lane for database, or you can separate the database lane out into each of its functions. So this is more sophisticated than my drawing. Nice job. You did this during the class?
It was based on the template.
Right, you can use the template and then modify it.
That made it a lot faster.
Couple of decision points. Yeah. And this is the other thing. So I'm kind of dyslexic. So I always do thing in portrait, but this is a landscape and either one is correct. When you're doing the one for the hospital case, you can use either format. I can figure it out. I just find portrait a little bit easier for me. But this is pretty good. Probably this is an A. I might find 1 or 2 things, but nicely done. And what I'm looking for mostly is you get the steps handled. Okay, it's 6:12. We're running a little bit late. I apologize, but thank you for contributing to the class. And I'll see you next week. I have office hours coming up. And then tomorrow night, yeah. All right. Everybody have a great night. If you're in Boston, please. Oh, Taco Bell opened up with liquor. What's going on in the world? You can get a frozen Tutti Frutti and a taco. I'm like, yeah. Anyways, see you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.